Hello, students, teachers, and welcomed guests. I know most of you may know who I am already, but for the ones that may not, I'm Arika. I graduated Elrose Composite in June, and I had the honor of winning first place for my essay for the Legion Foundation's National Literary Contest. I am very proud that I will have the opportunity to represent our school and community while attending the National Remembrance Day ceremony in Ottawa on November 11th. I will be laying a wreath on behalf of the youth of Canada. Just like all of you who have submitted entries this year, I submitted an entry every year since kindergarten, and remembrance is a topic that is very important to me. I wrote my essay mainly to voice my opinion, and I wanted to broaden what people thought about remembrance. I wanted to emphasize why it is so important for youth like you to remember and honor the people fighting and sacrificing for our freedoms. I hope all of you will continue to make our school proud and keep Remembrance Day close to your hearts, and remember the sacrifices Canadians are making this very second. Multicultural Canadian sacrifices. When Canadians think of Remembrance Day, they think we must remember the past and only honor our veterans. They believe this is a day we celebrate past generations, but forget the people defending us this very second. They forget that now both men and women fight for our nation. Not just fathers and sons, but mothers and daughters sacrifice their lives as well. We also forget the other heroes. We fail to recall the countless doctors and nurses that play immense roles. They save lives without the fear of losing their own. As a child, I believed Remembrance Day was only about the older generations and was not relevant today. The truth is that wars are ongoing throughout the world, and Canadian men and women are keeping the peace. I am a second-generation Canadian. I do not have ancestors that fought for Canada, but they fought wars for their birth country. Remembrance should be a topic that brings every individual from every nation together. As a multicultural nation, we fail to recognize the Canadian minorities and immigrants who have defended our country. We often depict our defenders in Remembrance Day programs, books, and our education systems as a stereotypical Caucasian male. But we must include Canadians of all races, genders, and classes in our remembrance. We must remember the sacrifices made by these heroes who do not often receive the recognition they deserve. In the past, when there were more racial stereotypes and segregation, people looked down upon Canadians of different ethnicities and races. Thankfully, no segregation barriers were created when enlisting after the Second World War. While some Black Canadian recruits encountered resistance when trying to join the Army, they were given permission. Thousands of Black Canadians served in many wars, but are not portrayed in our history books. In addition to our Black Canadians, we must include Indigenous Canadians' contributions. Indigenous Canadians from every region of Canada served in the armed forces during both World Wars, Korea, and Afghanistan. They fought in every major battle and campaign of the conflicts. Indigenous peoples played a huge role through generations, yet their contributions are still often ignored. As generations of learning to rise above and knowing the importance of inclusion, we should make a change. We need to teach our children the value of their sacrifices and the significance of their bravery. Remembrance is just as much about the present as it is about the past. Without learning from the past, we would have no present. It is challenging as a generation of privileged youth to understand and learn about war and sacrifice. Most of us will never have to enlist in war or give up our childhoods for future generations. My experience with remembrance is much like this. I can never fathom how these brave men and women felt. I can never fully comprehend the severity of their sacrifices for our nation. I can never understand the pain of being away from my family, not coming home to my warm bed, and not knowing if I will feel the warmth of the sun on my face tomorrow. These heroic individuals who enlist to serve our nation do not do it in the hopes to bring home riches or for selfish reasons. They join to shield every individual from bloodshed. Remembrance should be a feeling embraced in our hearts, an emotion taught to every soul. If we are not thankful, who will be? Our job is to remember the fallen and the people defending our nation today. This one day is when every Canadian comes together and honors their sacrifices. We cannot comprehend what they encounter, but we can take a moment of silence for them. A moment of silence, feeling gratitude and gratefulness, sensing an immense joy to be a part of a nation of courageous individuals willing to defend our future. As a generation of privileged youth, we must never forget their sacrifices, the people who give their lives so we can live our lives without fear. On Remembrance Days, we must not think of just the past, but about the present too. We must think of what might happen if their sacrifices went unnoticed and if we fail to honor them. We are the generation of remembrance and reconciliation. We must remember them with all our hearts and until we have taken our last breaths.